All right, so we are going to take a look at doing a physical inventory in QuickBooks Point of Sale. Uh, when you're getting ready to do a physical inventory, you need to start off by backing up your point of sale system. It's important to do that so that you know what you have on hand. If you make a mistake, you're going to be able to recover that should something go wrong. You could also print out an on-hand report or save it to Excel so that you can refer to that after you do your inventory just to make sure what happened. There are a couple of different kinds of inventories you can do. You can do a cycle count, meaning that you're going to count part of your inventory, not a complete inventory. Or you can do a full inventory where you count everything in the store. No matter which one you do, they're going to be done exactly the same way, except for one little step, which we'll talk about at the end. If you have multiple stores, it's really important that you do a full cycle sync before you start your inventory. What that means is you're going to send from the remote store to headquarters. Headquarters is going to process that in. You're going to send back to the remote store. The remote store will then process that in and send back to headquarters. Headquarters will process that in, send back to the remote store. Remote store will process that in, send back to headquarters. And you're going to do that a full back and forth 3 times. The purpose of that is to make sure that your inventory is completely in sync with each other. Because when you finalize your inventory in point of sale, it does not say I had 5 widgets. It says I thought I had 4 widgets, but now I have 5, so I have 1 more than I thought. It sends a +1. If you had 3 widgets instead of 4, it would send a -1. So it doesn't send the count that you counted. It sends how many more or less you have than what it thought you started with. That's why it's real important to make sure that all the stores are on the exact same numbers before you start the physical inventory. If you've got one store, you really don't have to worry about that because it is what it is. All right. When we go to set up for doing a physical inventory, there are 2 basic ways to conduct that inventory. You can conduct it manually with a piece of paper and writing down everything you have in the store, or you can do it with a physical inventory scanner. If you're doing your inventory with the physical inventory scanner, then it's important before you do the inventory to test the scanner, make sure it is talking to your computer. I can almost speak English. So once you have that established that your scanner can talk to the computer, you want to make sure it's clear and that it does not contain any information, and then you're ready to go around and start scanning the store. When you scan the store, even when you're counting the store, it's a good idea to break the store down into different zones and create yourself a zone map so you know where each zone is. That allows you to scan everything in that particular zone or area and not have to lose track of where you are when you are scanning. When you're scanning with the portable scanner, you're going to scan an area, come back to the main computer, upload that into the computer, and then verify that everything looks okay. And we'll talk about that a bit more here in just a moment. So I want to switch over to my point of sale. In my point of sale, we want to start by going to, like I said, doing a backup. So you go File, you go Backup Data. You can only do that on the local server computer, and we back up our data. So after it's backed up your data, you're then ready to actually start your physical inventory process. To do that, you're going to go up to inventory. You're going to go down to start physical. And then if you have more than one store, it's going to give you the option to choose which store you're doing the inventory for. So you pick your store, and you say okay. If you have multiple stores and you're at the remote store, you do not have the option to choose which store you're doing the inventory for. It's always just that local store. If you have a single store, you won't have an option either. You're just going to see that single store. The select multiple stores, when you're actually doing the inventory in that store, you're going to select the correct store that you're doing the inventory of. The other one is for synchronizing those values. You've got a multiple store setup. It is going to have you verify the inventory at headquarters and finalize it before it actually makes the changes permanently to inventory. And that's where you have the multiple store check at headquarters. So once you have started your physical inventory, what it does is it takes a snapshot of what you have in inventory at that moment, or at least what your computer thinks you have in inventory at that moment. And you can see here, we've got item numbers, we've got item names, we've got attributes, we've got sizes, we've got expected, how many items it thinks we have of each item. You have a column for counted, how many you actually counted. You've got a difference quantity column, which shows up whatever difference you may have from what you counted. If I count 9 of this first item, difference is not going to have anything in it. If I count 8 of the next item, I'm going to get a red -1, which says I'm short 1. If I count 10 of the next one, I'm going to get a green plus saying I had one more than I thought I had. And you can go through your inventory and enter items manually into the counted column if you wish. If you are doing your inventory as a manual count where you're going to run around and count what you've got and come back and enter it in the computer, I would go up here to I want to, go down to run a report, and do a PI worksheet. PI worksheet is going to show you your item number, your item name, department, your vendor name, if you have it so selected, how many you expect, and a little blank to write down how many you counted. You can resort this by whatever makes sense for the way your store may be laid out. So you choose how you want to sort it. Then you go around, you go count, and you just run down the sheet and count and tell it how many you've got. Of course, you can print this out and then get yourself some clipboards and go to it. When you've completed, and you can also resort this field so that it is sorted the same way that your count sheet is. So we can sort it by department. Also, the first time you run a physical inventory, you get a bunch of extra stuff in here you really don't need for doing a physical inventory. And you can clean that up by right-clicking up here on the column headers, go to Customize Columns, go over here to the right-hand column. You can get rid of stuff that really has nothing to do with doing a physical inventory. So you can delete some of these fields that you really don't need to see, making the screen a little less cluttered, but you've got less stuff to worry about. Now, if you don't have vendor codes and department codes, then you might want the name. And so we can go over here and we can choose our department. We can add the department. I can move it up. I can get rid of the department code because I don't need both name and code. I can go over here to the bottom of my left-hand list I can choose vendor name. I can add that. I can move that up, and I can get rid of vendor code, and I can save it, and that will clean up the stuff that I have to look at when I'm doing my inventory. I can right-click up here on the header bar. I can adjust column width, and it will widen the columns out to fit the widest thing in that column. And so that's going to make it a little easier to read and see your names or whatever you may be looking at. So now I can sort again by department. So now I'm sorted by my departments. So when I go off and count my stuff, and I come back with my count sheets, I can come over here and I can click into the counted column and I can type how many of those I found. Or I can come over here and go to I want to, add counts by hand, and that brings up my add counts by hand sheet. Over here, I can choose what's going to happen when I press the enter key on my keyboard. And right now, if I type in my item number and press enter, it's going to go to the quantity field so I can type in my quantity. Then if I press enter again, it will add that to my list. So if I go over here and type in item number 2698 and I press enter, and I tell it I have 5 of them and I press enter, it'll drop it down into my sheet. I can then go on and enter my next item, and I can so on, right on down through my list of items until I've entered all the items off of one sheet. Then you would hit save, and that will add those counts to your counted sheet. If you're rocking around counting things and your sheet didn't happen to have these logo t-shirts on it, but you found one where you were, then on my count sheet here, I could add that item number that I found, and I could say I found one of these over there, and I would add that to my count sheet. And when I save, right now I have 5 of them, but if I save it, it's going to add another one. So that number I add in there doesn't replace the previous one. Where if I have a number here in my counted column, if I find another one and I put in, I found one more, I only found one. You've got to do the math and add 2, however many you found, when you change the number in the counted column. And then it reflects the total number that you have counted in the store. Okay. And you're going to proceed until you've got something entered for everything. You'll notice down here in the bottom corner, it tells us how many more items we found than it expected to find, how many less items we found than it expected to find, the net difference between more and less, and the retail difference and the cost difference for those items. You'll also notice down there in that corner, there is a little button, a little checkbox that says set all items not counted to 0. If I check that, it zeroes out everything I didn't count. Suddenly I didn't find 24,109 items. Not good. But if you're doing a complete inventory, you want to make sure you check that checkbox so that it does zero out anything that you did not count. It will also zero out anything that happened to have a negative count on it. If an item had a negative expected quantity, you're not going to find it. And so therefore, you need to zero that out. Instead of it being negative, make it 0. And it's important that You do that when you're doing a full physical inventory. Also, sometimes when you're doing a physical inventory, and so if I'm going along here, I'm going to check that checkbox. I may have a reason that I need to get out of point of sale to do something else. Uh, maybe I'm doing a 2-day count and it's the end of the day. Well, I want to save and continue, and then I can close out of my physical inventory. When I go back into my physical inventory, it's going to be right where I left off. I'm going to end up right back where I left off. All the exact counts that I had previously entered. Sometimes this checkbox, though, is checked, but it doesn't apply the zeros. So it's always a good idea before you finalize the inventory that you uncheck and recheck that checkbox just to make sure that the zeros are all applied. Now, if you are doing a cycle count and you're only counting one department or one vendor's merchandise, then it's also important that you do not check that. You want to make sure it is unchecked so that it doesn't zero out everything else in the store. Because if that is checked and you hit apply changes, you just zeroed out everything in the store that you did not have a number beside. So it's just something to be careful and aware of. All right. If you're using a physical inventory scanner, you're going to clear the scanner. You're going to choose scan items. And depending on which scanner you are using, there's a couple of models. You could have an option to scan items or to scan with quantity. Scan with quantity lets you scan an item and then type in a number, how many you have, then press the enter key on the scanner. On the other scanner model, it doesn't give you those options between scan or scan with quantity. It is always in scan with quantity mode. So after you scan an item, it is going to assume one item. You can press the enter key and move on to the next item. If you have more than one, you can type in that number. If you have 5 of the same item, you can scan the first one, type 5, press enter, and you'll get a count of 5. You don't have to manually scan each of the 5 individual items. That can be really handy if you've got something that comes in a case lot or a carton. You got a carton of 20 batteries. Instead of scanning each individual battery, you can scan one and type 20 and have counted all 20 batteries quickly and easily. When you're doing it with your scanner, you're going to go around, you're going to scan the zone. You'll come back, put the scanner in its cradle, come up here to I want to. Oh, on the scanner, you're also going to press escape to get it back on the main menu. The main menu is going to have the choice of to enter items, upload items, or miscellaneous, which gives you the option to delete everything on the scanner. So you're going to come back, you're going to get it back on the main menu screen. Depending on which scanner it is, you're going to choose upload items if it's the newer scanner. You will then come down here to add counts from scanner, and it will bring up another dialog box, which gives you the instructions for uploading from the scanner. If you didn't hit the upload, it'll tell you that to hit the upload. Press next. It goes to the next screen, which says you're about to upload information from your scanner. You then choose next, and it starts uploading the data from your scanner. Sometimes it might have a bad connection and not actually upload that data. If that occurs, then just hit the back button, take it out of the cradle, put it back in the cradle, hit the next button again, and attempt it. Most of the time, that's going to fix that issue. So it's going to then read the counts of what's in your scanner. It's going to bring up another dialog box. And that dialog box is going to have two tabs. One that says count or item list, and the other one that says unrecognized scans. Hopefully, the unrecognized scans isn't going to have anything on it. If it does, it will start on that tab, and it will show you anything that it did not recognize the barcode for. It will also show you the items you scanned before and after the item it didn't recognize. You have two choices at that point. One is to enter your silly pop-ups are annoying me, is to enter your scans by going and finding that item that it didn't recognize, pulling it aside so that you can recount it later. And depending on how many items show up in that unrecognized scan list, you can either print the list of all the unrecognized scans, and that's a little deceptive because it's not going to just print the unrecognized scans. It's going to print everything you scanned in that zone. If you scan 200 different items, you're going to get a list of 200 items that it's going to print out. If you had 3 items that weren't recognized in that zone, that's a lot of paper to waste for 3 items. If you don't have very many items, I would simply write down how many you had, and I would write down the good item, bad, and good item. That way you can go into your zone, locate the 2 good items, know the item that's in between them was the bad item, so that you can pull that bad item, put it aside on a fix-it table, and when you have time or at the end of your inventory taking, you can try to rescan the items on the bad table. If they scan, great. Scan them and put them away. If they don't scan, then you know you need to print new tags for those items so that you can scan them and add their counts to inventory. And then you also know that next time they come back up to the register for someone purchasing it, it's going to scan it correctly, and the cashier is not going to end up entering the wrong item and causing your count. So, after you've got the bad scans fixed, and you've got everything else that was on that bad table fixed and set up, you're all set. So, you're going to scan everything. Then, when you think you're all done, you're going to go over here to I want to. You're going to run a report, and you're going to do a differences report. The differences report is going to show you the items that you counted whose counts don't match what it thought you started with. It'll show you what was expected. It will show you what you actually counted and what the difference was, whether you found more or less. Depending on how many items you've got and the cost of the items, you might double check them. Make sure that indeed you counted 10 of that item 184 of that 123 to the zoo book and not 9. Verify that indeed what you counted was correct. Once you have verified your list and said it's as good as it's going to get, then you're ready to wrap up your inventory. You would do that by doing save and continue, closing out of the start physical, and do another backup. But you did a backup before you started, you did one when you think you're done. Come back into start physical. If you do the full physical, uncheck and recheck the set all items not counted as zero. You are then ready to hit the Apply Changes button. When you hit Apply Changes, whatever number you have in the counted column is going to be your new inventory quantity. So right now, it thinks I've got 5 of these 2700 logo t-shirts. If I hit Apply Changes, it says you're about to update your inventory. Are you sure? And I say yes. I just made those changes to my inventory. When you make those changes, it creates a quantity adjustment memo that contains everything that wasn't matching what it thought you should have had. Click OK. I then have the option to run a differences report or run a detail report. The differences report is the one we looked at a moment ago. The detail report, if I run that one, is going to show me everything I counted and whether I counted more or less than what I thought I should have had. So it not only shows you the differences, but it shows you everything you've counted. And that rounds up the inventory. Under my inventory and under quantity adjustment history, I can find that quantity adjustment memo it created, and I can see what items it adjusted, whether it reduced or increased the cost of those items, the quantity of those items. And if I were to go to my item list and look at item 2700, I had 5 of those t-shirts. Now I can see I have 6. Okay. Any questions on a physical inventory?
Hi, this is Marcia Neal. I have a question about why would you do that second back?
Which one? Which step is that, Marcia? Which step is that, Marcia?
Towards the end, where is it? I mean, after you do the physical inventory, you've done before you do the adjustments, before you do the memo,
The apply all changes?
I'm sorry?
The apply all changes?
Yeah, I guess so. You said you do a second backup.
Right.
That's the only time you said you do a second backup.
Right. The reason you do that second backup is once you hit apply changes, it's done. So it's a good idea to save and continue, then close, do a backup so that if you messed up and you realize that, ooh, I forgot to check that, uncheck and recheck, that set all items not counted as 0. And I got a bunch of stuff here that's negative because I didn't zero it out. You can restore the backup, which is going to restore your physical inventory count, check it, and then apply changes and fix it. Otherwise, you got to try to figure out what you had 0 of that you shouldn't have had 0 of, or didn't have 0 of that you should have had 0 of, and correct them. Which, if you got 6,000 different items, that's going to be hard. So you'll be a lot happier if you back it up, just in case you have an issue that pops up. Any other questions? I'm gonna make sure everybody's unmuted here so I can hear everybody. Yeah, I think I got everyone unmuted.
Can you hear me?
No, I don't hear any other questions.
I heard.
This is Janet, and I have a question about the two different models of scanners. The first one you mentioned, does it automatically, I mean, how, you told the two different ones, can you count on both and put that in, or you have to scan? I got mixed up, sorry.
Okay. So there's an older version which has the option to scan or to scan count. The newer version, I think the older one's a MetroLogic and the new one's a CipherLab. On the newer version,
Notice how
you
very
have to scan and press the enter key.
sounds complicated to me. Okay.
Side,
They wanted
the scan
to yes,
one on the left,
ready.
one on the right. Press either one and it enters a count of
Okay, and go over it again.
count of something
I
else,
want you guys to hear.
and type in how many, and then press the enter button.
I don't know if any of us feel confident.
There's too much background. We can't hear anything.
But
That's if everybody's unmuted here again. Okay, I muted everybody but you. So,
I'm sorry, I did miss that because of the background noise, but I think I got the understanding because you explained about the first one. Oh,
all right, the old one has the scan or scan with count. The new one just has the scan option. So you scan and then you have to enter a count or press enter. If you scan one item, you got to hit enter.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And then when we're ready to do our inventory from the Poppy Reserve out here, and of course we got shut down, but we can schedule a training where we can personally go through it out there and get ready to go, correct?
Absolutely. And I would highly recommend that before you get ready to do the physical, give service a call and schedule an appointment so that a day or two before you're ready to do it, we can go over everything. If you're using scanners, we'll make sure the scanners are communicating. If you're not using scanners, we'll just make sure you understand how to do the manual.
Okay, we have one, we bought one.
Yeah. And so just make sure that we sit down with you and make sure it's connected doing its thing before you do a physical.
Okay, sounds
I
good.
see Kim has a question here about how much can you expect to pay for that portable scanner. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly what they go for nowadays. I know that we offer them to rent. You can rent them from us. I'm not sure what that rent price is either, because I don't pay attention to prices, because that way I can't quote the wrong one to somebody. But you do have the option to rent a scanner the very first time. You get 1 day free. That way you can see if you like the scanner, and then you can purchase one. I believe renting it 4 or maybe 5 times pays for the scanner. And so it's not a bad investment. And then you can do partial inventories anytime you want fairly quickly with the scanners. Let's see here. And I got a question from Karen. Yes, Karen. I can hear you now, Karen. You have a question, Karen? lost Karen. She can't answer my question. And Kim asked a question. I don't know if you can see my little question box that's up or not. About after you finished inventory, you've got all your counts correct. How do you clean up stuff that you no longer are going to carry and that you no longer have in stock? You're able to do that by resorting your item list and finding out which items you have zero on hand of. And then you can go through and delete those items out of your inventory when you don't have any more. You could also look at when the last time you received that item was to help you decide if this item I just haven't got around to reordering, or if it's one I haven't ordered in 6 months or a year, and so I'm not going to reorder it. I know I can get rid of it. Okay. Yeah, and Karen asked about hitting the Apply Changes button. Yeah, make sure you do not hit Apply Changes until you have counted everything in the store. You have saved and continued, closed out of your physical inventory, did a backup, go back into physical inventory before you hit that Apply Changes. Also, remember, if you're doing a full physical inventory, be sure to check and uncheck the set all items not counted as zero. If you're doing a partial inventory, be sure you do not have that box checked. And any advice on zones? How big of an area? Generally, a zone can be something that has about 200 or 300 different items in it. If you're scanning, something you can scan in 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, you can take the scanner and scan the entire store, but if something goes wrong, you're going to be real upset if you have to rescan the whole store. You're not going to be happy if you have to rescan a zone, but you won't be nearly as upset redoing 10 or 15 minutes as opposed to doing 3 or 4 or more hours to fix it. So you want to keep them relatively small. It also makes it easier to find an item should you have an item that comes up as unrecognized. And yeah, Karen, you can hit save and continue after you upload each zone. Not going to hurt at all. You just don't have to close out after each one, but you can certainly hit save and continue. If you're going to take a break, definitely you want to hit save and continue. That way it keeps track of exactly where you were, just in case something weird happens to the computer. And also very important with the scanner, make sure that you clear the counts out of the scanner every time, so that, because if you don't clear the counts out of the scanner before you scan the next zone, you're going to end up adding what you counted in the previous zone again, so you'll have doubled your count on some of your items. I've seen people do that, and boy, they have a real mess when they get done. Right. The difference between cost and order cost was a question that was asked. Order cost is the cost you expect to pay for an item next time you order it. Cost is the amount you have paid for the item that you have in stock. And the order cost can change as the vendor changes the cost of their items. The cost will change because if you're receiving your items through a receiving voucher, then it automatically averages your cost. If your cost has changed since the last time you received that item, it will average it based on how many items you're receiving versus how many items you currently have in stock. And that is automatic. So, any other questions? Cost does not include shipping charges. Shipping charges are separate from cost. It can, the cost can include them if you hit the spread cost and freight over the items, then the average cost can include shipping as part of that cost, yes. I don't like spreading it, but you can. Oh, any other questions? I don't see anybody typing any new questions. Give you a minute here. So this webinar is being recorded so that you will be able to look back on the stuff in the future and see if you have any questions on that. Another question is, can column headers titles be customized? Some can be, most cannot. Item name is one that can be customized. The couple you can customize will show up under preferences and company and my field labels. And down here at the bottom, we've got attribute, size, item name, and item description. Those can be changed. And that's really about the only ones that can be changed, is those four. Any other questions? Like I said, we will be sending out a list to everyone who attended, letting you know when the webinar is available up on our website, and that you can go and take a look at it again, should you need to. Or you could have some of the staff watch it. Okay, I'm not readily seeing any more questions popping up. If you have any questions, you can always give us a call, 916-368-1070. Again, that's Daryl. My name's Daryl. That's my usual. Somebody didn't answer the phone. But you can ask for me, you can ask for Daryl, or you can ask for anybody who answers the phone, and the receptionist will put you in touch with someone. But 916-368-1070, or you can drop me an email at Darrell F. That's DARRELLF like Franklin at BigHairyDog.com, and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. If I can't answer them in an email, I'll give you a call to have you clarify exactly what you're asking for. So, everybody have a great rest of their day and a great weekend. And like I said, give me a call or drop us a note if you have any more questions. Take care. Bye-bye.